Peace and all God's blessings be with you. I welcome you to Reflections, a show that asks if people can see God in your reflection and how Scripture relates to us today. I am Father Bob Janine, the pastor of Mission St. Sergius in Bacchus, mission of the Independent Catholic Church of the Americas and the Franciscans of Joy of the Gospel. I am also the Chancellor of the New England Diocese of the Church, whose offices and our mission offices are located at St. Joseph Cupertino Parish, 742 Rock Street in Fall River, Massachusetts. We also have a parish down in West Warwick, Rhode Island, St. Therese Parish on West Main Street, 1500 West Main Street, and another parish, St. Augustine by the Sea, down in New London, Connecticut. We also have outreach ministries to nursing homes, hospices, hospitals, and shut-ins in Franklin, Fall River, Milford, Walpole, Seekonk, and many other towns within Massachusetts, as well as Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Good day. I've entitled the show for today, for this Sunday, The Musings of a Senior Citizen. At the ripe age of 79 and a half, after completing 11 years as a priest, 35 years as a deacon, and more than 45 years as a teacher, I find myself asking many questions about the state of our life today versus the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Oh, true, technology has made major advances in our lives, but I also believe we've lost an awful lot. We can see the world events as they're happening live and not on a newsreel 2, 3, 5, 10 days later. I remember going into the movies, and you'd go to the movie and they always had the news of the world or a newsreel. But the news were things that happened the week before. Today, you're watching an event as it's happening. An accident on the highway, a plane crashing, whatever. Who can forget the horror of sitting mesmerized watching 9/11 and those twin towers collapsing? Forever, a live picture happening at the moment, and we're watching it. So that's a positive, I guess. What else? Well, we can talk to people on our smartphones. Not only talk to them, but see them. Even if they're over in Europe, we can see them, they can see us, we can chat and carry on a conversation. It's a lot better than dialing up the phone. Remember that? Or better yet, do you remember? Click, click, click. Operator, please get me Mary Lou down in whatever. And our technology is a wonderful thing. Computers. Oh, you made a mistake? You don't use whiteout anymore. No, you just delete and redo. And then you print it right out. And if you want, you can make 100 copies of whatever it is you wrote. We've explored space, landed men on the moon, discovered cures for polio, tuberculosis, measles, chickenpox, and even some forms of cancer, and found ways to extend the quality of life for people with Parkinson's disease, AIDS, multiple sclerosis. These are all wonderful, great advances that we've made. But we've also lost a lot. As a child, we walked to school, At lunchtime, we'd walk home, have our lunch, and walk back to school. And then we'd walk home after school. And then we'd probably engage in a game of football or basketball or baseball or street hockey, or we'd be active. We did not have the obesity problem that we have today. And maybe it's because we were so active and we had to do all that walking, all that exercise. For me, it was about 1.5 miles to school. I remember I even walked. I evidently got very pale looking at school, and the nun sent me into the nurse. Nurse sent me home, but I had to walk home 1.5 miles. Come to find out, I had ruptured appendix. Rushed into the hospital and ended up in the hospital for more than a week. But we had a lot of exercise. I remember that all of our meals were cooked at home. Every morning we had a good, substantial breakfast. When we went home for lunch, we had soup and a sandwich or something very substantial. And at evening, we'd gather as a family. In my case, it was only mom, dad, and me. But we'd gather and we'd have a meal together. And we'd even talk about our day. Today, sometimes members of the same family don't see each other for days on end. And when they do, they're seeing each other on their smartphone. So I don't think that that's a positive. I think that's a negative. I remember that our food, in the winter, we had a greengrocer who used to come by with lettuce and all those things. In the summer, we grew our own. And I remember meats, our butter, egg, milk were delivered by Kennedy's Butter and Egg and H.P. Hood Company. And we had bread, cakes, and pies always baked at home. Or better yet, in my neighborhood, neighbors used to bake, and they'd walk in. Of course, the doors were never locked. Never. You didn't lock your doors. Everyone in the neighborhood watched out for everyone else. Everyone knew everyone. And God help, somebody would do something wrong, and a neighbor spotted it. The parents of that person knew about it before the person got back to the house. But in our neighborhood, the neighbors used to bring baked goods. Even if you were out, you'd come in and there'd be a pie or sometimes baklava or stuffed grape leaves. Oh, Lucy Tulanian, God bless her. The Tulanians were a family that lived across the street from me. They had a little store. Around the front of their house was on our street, and around the corner attached to the back of their house was a little convenience store. They had snacks, candy, milk, things. But Lucy used to make, this most wonderful Armenian food. And I think it was Armenian. And baklava, stuffed grape leaves, and all that wonderful stuff. And we'd come home and it would be there. And my dad worked down in he was in the post office, Parcel Post, and his route was down in the Faneuil Hall Market area. And every evening, the vendors down there would give him things because they knew if they didn't give them to somebody, they were going to go bad. So he'd come home and he'd be sharing all these things with the neighbors. And we never went hungry during World War II when everything was rationed. Weekends were family time. Families were together on weekends. Stores were not open in those days. And every family, if you were Jewish, you went to shul on Friday night or Saturday. And all Christians would go to their respective churches, whether it be Anglican or Roman Catholic or Old Catholic or Independent Catholic or Presbyterian or Christian Science. Everyone went to church. Not anymore. Recently, I attended Mass on a Sunday at the only English Mass at the cathedral in Fall River. And I was shocked. There were about 120 people in this cathedral that holds well over 1,000 people. And that's not just that church, it's every church. That's why churches are closing. People just aren't going. They've given up. God is not important in their lives anymore, evidently. And holidays. Oh, holidays were wonderful. I remember the 4th of July, all of us kids would get together and we'd have a parade. And then in the afternoon, there'd be barbecues. And all of the whole neighborhood, the block was all sealed off. And I'm talking about 3 streets over. And where we lived, there were borders so that we could close off all this area. And there were barbecues and people sharing and music playing. And then in the evening, like on 4th of July, we'd all gather on the hilltop overlooking the bay. And the fathers would all have our firework display. And Christmas was open house, and we'd go around singing carols, and everyone would go in and out of everyone's house, and there was always food. And then we'd go to midnight mass, and after midnight mass, there were still people visiting and eating food. That's the way it was. Most Catholic churches had daily masses that had attendance greater than many of the churches have on a Sunday now. Stores were not open on Sunday. You couldn't go shopping on Sunday. And gang violence, almost unheard of. And what was foolish things. Not people carrying guns and shooting people. Hearing about a child bringing a gun to school or worse, or killing somebody, was unconscionable. You never heard of anything like that. Neighbors looked out for one another. And parents never disputed a teacher. If a teacher said they saw a child or they caught a child doing something, cheating or hitting somebody, the parents wouldn't say, "Not my child. Oh, no, you're wrong." No, they wouldn't do that. They respected the teachers. Most public meetings and sporting events began with a prayer by some clergy member of one denomination or another. Professional sports were just that. They were sports. People played because they enjoyed playing them. Yes, they got paid, but not like today. Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Lou Gehrig, Jackie Robinson, Bobby Orr, Fernie Flanagan, none of these great players ever even dreamed of salaries like our players get today. They never, ever achieved that kind of wealth. When you went shopping to a store, the customer was always right. And when you went, there were people there to help you. You'd walk into a store, and if you looked like you were looking for something, a clerk would come up and say, "May I help you?" You don't find that today. I've been in stores where I have to go seeking out a clerk to find some help. So things are different. I had the wonderful joy of seeing the original Oklahoma with Gertrude Lawrence and Yul Brynner on Broadway. Every year, 3-4 times a year, we'd go down to New York because my aunt owned some buildings there. And she had been in theater, so we had access to theater. Sometimes free, but always affordable. Today, to go to a theater performance or a baseball game, I don't know how families can bring a family to a baseball game with the prices that they charge. I can't afford to see live theater, and I used to be in the theater. I'm lucky if maybe I get invited to see a show out in the Berkshires because my friend was business manager to one of the theater companies out there. Or I'm lucky if I can go to a local community theater production like the one fabulous Fiddler on the Roof that we saw recently down in Fall River. I can afford that because it's like $20. But to go see a Broadway show in Boston even, $50, $60, $75, $100, depending on where you want to sit. Who can afford these things? I used to go into the Boston Garden for the ice follies, the ice capades, the circuses, all the events. And basically it was free because my mother worked in the Liggett's drugstore downstairs, so they used to give her passes. I was blessed. Today, I can't do those things, and I don't know too many families that can. Music and art were part of the regular curriculum. Excuse me. They were part of the regular curriculum in schools. You had music, you had art, along with the basic subjects of reading, writing, math, history, social studies. Schools had at least 2, if not 3, field trips to museums or historical places or cultural events, all paid for through the school budget. So much has changed. And as I said previously, I'm not sure that it's changed for the better. People used to be much more friendly. We used to actually sit down and have conversations with our family. And we used to gather together and talk face to face. Today, families are too busy trying to earn a living. Some families have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to get by. They have little time to attend Mass on a weekly basis, and certainly not on a daily basis. I feel truly blessed to have lived in the times that I've lived and to have experienced all I have. I am blessed to still be in contact with friends I knew from the first grade and my youth, and students that I had over 45 years ago still keep in touch with me through Facebook and sometimes even on a phone call. God has blessed me with so many wonderful memories that I fondly hold in my heart. And I worry and pray for our young people today as they face so many challenges that we never, ever had to face. The bullying and the berating and the things that are going on, causing some teenagers to commit suicide. The suicide rate amongst teenagers is higher than it's ever been in history. Why? The time is now for us to reflect back and try to grab hold of some of those lost, wonderful things and rejuvenate them and revive them in our daily lives. The time is now for us to return to being a God-loving, God-fearing people, putting God in our lives every day, taking time to talk to God or pray. That's another way of just talking to God. We are children of God, and there is only one God. It does not matter whether you're Jew, Muslim, or Christian. We all pray and honor the same God. Everywhere throughout history, people have worshiped a greater being. Everything in creation belongs to God. God made us caretakers of this planet. And personally, we're doing a lousy job of it. In Genesis, we read this. God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the earth and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds of the air and all the creatures that move on the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And so it was. That's Genesis 1, verses 26 through 30. Pope Francis, in his encyclical, Laudate Si, Mi Signore, Praise be to you, my Lord, whose title is taken from the beautiful canticle of St. Francis of Assisi, reminds us that our common home is like a sister with whom we share our life and a beautiful mother who opens her arms to embrace us. These are his words. Praise to you, my Lord, through our sister Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us and produces various fruit with colored flowers and herbs. This sister now cries out to us because of the harm we have inflicted upon her by our irresponsible use and abuse of the goods with which God has endowed her. We have come to see ourselves as her lords and masters, entitled to plunder her at will. The violence presents in our hearts, wounded by sin, is also reflected in the symptoms of sickness evident in the soil, in the water, in the air, and all forms of life. This is why the earth itself, burdened and laid waste, is among the most abandoned and maltreated of our poor. She groans in travail. That phrase, groans in travail, is taken from Romans 8:22. We have forgotten that we ourselves are dust of the earth. Genesis 2:7. Our very bodies are made up of her elements. We breathe her air, we receive life and refreshments from her waters. We haven't done a good job. And if we don't continue and we don't start to really take care of our environment, we're not going to exist. Because without it, we can't exist. So, in days of old, we took care of things, we nurtured, we grew, we planted, we shared, we had respect. Nowadays, that's gone, and we've got to get back to it. Times have changed, but in doing so, we've neglected to respect and care for the precious things that we, our parents and grandparents, cherished. We have ignored how we are devastating our environment by careless use of its resources. Religion of any kind has become something that many reject and often disparage, replaced by the idolization of fame, money, and personalities, and greed, and power. As I said earlier, family gatherings are few. One of the most wonderful things I remember is there was my mother, my father, and I. And yeah, we'd gather together as family quite often. But when I got married, I met a family who gathered regularly. I mean, almost weekly. They'd be gathering, and they had such camaraderie and such love and such caring. And whenever one was in trouble, the whole family gathered together and tried to make sure that the trouble was overcome. You don't see much of that these days. It's been replaced by Facebook, posting of pictures. Church attendance is, like I told you, 120 people in a cathedral that holds over 1,000 at the only English Mass of the Sunday. That's not, that's down everywhere. And except, people will go at Christmas, maybe Easter, and for weddings and funerals. Prayer before meals is almost non-existent. Recently, our postulant, or aspirant actually, and I were at a restaurant. And before we went to eat the meal that was in front of us, we blessed ourselves and said grace. And some people, you could see the people pointing and saying, what's going on? You don't see people doing that. You don't even see families when they gather together at the table saying a prayer before meals. That's something that they've forgotten. Yet we used to do it all the time. I think that the time is really now for us to look back and try to grab hold of some of those precious, wonderful things that we used to have and reinvigorate them, reinvent them, bring them back into being. It's time for us to look back on the values that this nation used to hold and embrace them and incorporate them, the good from the old, from the past, with the good of the future, and thereby make this world a much better place. Let us pray that we and our leaders will move toward improving things so that the quality of life for all people on this planet improves, especially for the poor, the alienated, the disenfranchised, the homeless, the unemployed, the sick and the aged. Let us pray that our leaders and the leaders of all the world's nations will find ways to bring an end to all the atrocities that are going on and to find ways to improve our planet and our lives, and help us to live as God-loving, God-fearing people. Let us be true children of God, caring for one another and for the planet and the gifts and the environment that God gave us to care for. May God bless you and keep you. May He let His light shine upon you and fill you with His infinite mercy and love. Until we meet again, this is Father Bob Janine inviting you, please send me emails, divinemercyparish@msn.com, or go to our website, www.missionsergius.org. Learn about our missions, and there you'll find links to our diocese, to our parishes, St. Joseph Cupertino in Fall River and St. Therese down in West Warwick, Rhode Island. Come to know about us. And I invite you, if you're in the area of any of our parishes, to come and visit and attend Mass. Pax Bonum.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.